Hello and welcome to the Overland Journal podcast. I am your host, Scott Brady, and I am with my co-host, Matt Scott, in the house, and we are enjoying a Papago Orange Blossom beer because I prefer fruity beers.
As do I.
There you now you know.
Here's the thing
about Overlanding.
Like, people always say that we like girly drinks.
Yeah.
They're just better.
They just taste better.
Like,
to me, at least.
I don't know. Like, I never got the taste for like, I want to drink something that's very high alcohol. It tastes like peat.
Yeah. And somehow when you look like a Neanderthal, you can drink a girly beer and it just seems to be fine.
I just don't care what people think. So,
well, you have the advantage of not looking like a Neanderthal.
Well, I mean, it's just oranges are better than dirt.
Or IPAs.
IPAs are like the male. Okay. If the basic B word female thing is the Frappuccino.
Yeah.
The basic bro thing.
IPA.
I think
you're right.
Frappuccinos for men. It's always, yeah.
It's true. No, it's true.
I can't do them. It's the bitter. Like I can't.
I know.
I just don't.
The first drink is okay. And then by the time you're halfway done, you're like, why am I still drinking this?
Yeah.
That's how I feel. This one's refreshing.
I'm happy with my choices. And I guess other people can be happy with theirs, even though they're clearly inferior. So not the people, but their choices of alcohol.
Let's talk about something that's not inferior, like your new TJ Long Wheelbase, which is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now for a quick break from one of our supporters. Let's take a minute to recognize one of the godfathers of overlanding and onboard power and off-grid towing. The folks at RedArc build the toughest, most versatile power management electronics known to man. And right now, RedArc is sponsoring a $20,000 vehicle upgrade and expense-paid adventure. It's the RedArc Power Your Wild sweepstakes, and it's easy to enter. Visit RedArcElectronics.com/poweryourwild. Sign up and power your odds by visiting RedArc's Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube pages. Outback tested, Outback tough. So get to it and power your wild with RedArc.
So I bought a 2006 Wrangler Unlimited Rubicon. I guess in the Jeep sphere, that's kind of a unicorn.
It is. They're super rare.
I haven't looked up the exact production figure, but I think I've read that they made 10,000 Unlimited Rubicons. I've read that they've made 14,000 Unlimited Rubicons on the Unlimiteds, which, for anybody that's not listening, they made them for 2 years, while the Jeep TJ was made from 97 to 2006. The Unlimited was only made for 2005 and 2006 model years, which makes it fairly special.
Yeah. I mean, by any standards, 14,000 units of something is rare, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like there's like very special cars that are only at 14,000.
They made 14,000 Ferrari 458s.
There you go.
It's just a random figure.
Yeah. That's how rare they are.
Yeah. I really like it.
And it's kind of like Ferrari red.
It's kind of like Ferrari red. It would really match a Ferrari really well.
It would.
So yeah, so I bought this thing and I bought it on eBay.
How did that go?
Listen, like the eBay side is what it is. They're just the facilitator. But I will just say that the guy didn't clean the 2 inches of dog hair out of the cup holders. And I drove it like 2 miles to the little country gas station by my house, sputtering to get into the thing. All 8 control arms gone.
Yeah.
All aftermarket stuff. Both track bars gone.
And how many miles do you think were on that suspension?
That I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it was like Skyjacker or
some
of the something like that. Terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, literally like the car was from 2006. So like, let's just say that they were put on in 2006. They were falling apart. I mean, the truck only has 90,000 miles on it.
That's not a lot of miles.
That's not a lot of miles. The OE stuff wouldn't have even been in that chip. Actually, there were 2 stock upper control arms. So I
in the back,
in the back, which are the ones you actually want to replace because of pinion angles. So
sure.
So the experience of buying it sight unseen at night, it was what it was. Like I got a pretty good deal on it.
That's right. You did get a fair deal on it.
I got a pretty good deal on it, but
for it.
Any of the stuff that was on there, I had to replace.
Now that top was kind of rare.
That was the reason why we bought it. So it had a paint matched Safari top on it. The company that makes them, I want to say it's Great Tops. It was kind of I don't know if it was their project vehicle or it was like a family member's truck that they used as a show display vehicle. So the entire Jeep was repainted when the top went on. And the cool thing with that is it matches perfectly.
Nice.
That's really nice. Everything's in good shape on it. It's just that there were really subpar parts put on it. And I think, that just verifies what I've been saying for a really long time is buy once, cry once. Like I'm going to, we put Terraflex control arms and stuff on there. And I know that stuff will will last a long time and it's serviceable. Instead of being able to replace a bushing, I had to throw away 8 control arms. So yeah, you probably saved yourself like a Big Mac by going with some, crappy Jeep lift. But what's the long term here? That's actually the thing, what I'm trying to do with this LJ is I'm trying to build a classy Jeep. Yeah. And it is, to me, the TJ LJ shares way more in common with a World War II Jeep than it does, mine being a 2006 than a 2007 JK. There's not much really in common with them on the JK side, but this still has a tub. It still has the straight 6. Yep. It's a Jeep. Yep. Right. I'm not saying that the JKs and JLs and stuff, they're immensely better vehicles.
Yeah. They were revolutionary as opposed to the TJ being evolutionary from the YJ and from the CJ and everything else. Yeah.
The plan is to just kind of have like this modern classic project that, we can, one, it provides some perspective for me as to how crazy these cars have gotten.
Yeah.
One of my dream cars when I was in high school was an LJ. That was like the cool car. That was the cool Jeep.
It was.
It still is the cool Jeep. Yeah. I'd like to have one that's just not ruined. Unfortunately, you can't just send it to AEV anymore. You can't get the fender flares and the Highline stuff, which is, if anybody is listening that has a set of Highline fenders, I will give you whatever you want.
Exactly.
My phone number
Unobtainium.
is. Yeah. No. So the idea is, we're going to do some classic looking bumpers. We're not really going to turn it into a rock crawler, because Gladiator's probably better in most things.
But this will also easily do the Rubicon.
Yeah, for sure.
All day long.
So it's got those Dana 44s.
And you put on some 1552 wheels, which look great.
Yeah, I think they look
wheels. Great.
Yeah. So, what we're doing with it is that the theme is modern classic. And with this Safari top, I think it's going to be a really, really fascinating project. We're going to be talking about it on Expedition Portal. We're going to be talking about it as a company project through Adventure Imports on our social. So that'll start kind of launching here soon. We're trying to do a back to basics vehicle. We're not trying to make an old truck new. The amount of work that you have to do to put 35s on a TJ or an LJ is, you are cutting everything off and welding on rock crawler, 3-link, whatever, suspension, which is just not something that we're interested in doing. I could buy a stock JL Rubicon for less money and have more capability right off the bat. I know some people will argue with that, but come at me, bro.
With your IPA.
With your IPA. Yeah, so it'll be fun. Dakar, our rescue Greyhound, loves it. We got this bed. We took the back
Dakar
seat out.
Transport.
Well, with the Safari top, he can launch himself into it because he's a very big dog. He can launch himself into the back and he doesn't hit anything.
Yeah.
And then he has this bed that's half the size of Texas in the back, and he has this little window on the Safari top that he sticks his nose out and
it's so perfect.
It's I was looking at CJs, I was looking at FJ40s, I was looking at Series Land Rovers, I was looking at Defenders. I really wanted a Defender 90, but I just
it's a big investment.
Yeah. And if I do want to use it, I don't trust those vehicles really at all. The stuff that you can get, you're either getting a questionable import at this point.
Yeah.
Or you're getting something that somebody has touched in an effort to make a bunch of money on and flip it. And, they put quilted northern seats everywhere, with the cross stitching, because apparently that just makes an agricultural tractor luxury vehicle.
Yeah, exactly.
The whole Defender thing just got really annoying. So we kind of are just going to do our own thing.
It's perfect.
And it's a classic car that just happens to have been built in 2006.
Yeah, it's perfect.
It's one of those things that, it kept going, whether or not the TJ in hindsight should have run as long as it did, knowing how much of an evolution the JK was. It's interesting.
It's a fun Jeep to drive around.
It's fun.
That's what it should be.
We're not going to, do any kind of crazy lifts or anything. The plan is to build a simple vehicle that is attainable for most people. What we're doing granted, this LJ applies to stuff that people can do in a YJ or a TJ or anything. The idea is that you don't need, every widget. You don't need massive tires. You don't need crazy suspension.
On the TJs, I remember the only new car I ever bought up until recently was a 2000 TJ. So that's cool. I had a 2000 TJ Sahara that I bought when I was still working in manufacturing. It was the first time I've ever bought a new car.
Yeah.
I bought it down in Phoenix. I mean, it was like, I felt like I won the personal lottery, that I just finally got to that point in my life that I could afford a car payment like that, and that I could afford to have a new vehicle. And I had this Venturecraft trailer that was this little pop top trailer, and it was also white. And I put matching Sahara fenders on it. And I did very little to that vehicle. I did an ARB front bumper to it and a Warren winch. And I installed a 2-inch Terraflex suspension system on it with the lower control arm, so I could adjust for the death wobble and all that stuff. Yep. And that was it. I eventually put some steel TJ wheels on it with 33 by 1050 tires on it.
Okay.
Eventually, but I ran the stock tires for a long time. The thing I didn't like about it was the 3-speed automatic. That was terrible.
Yeah.
So is yours
Mine's
a 4-speed?
4-speed, but it's electronically controlled.
Okay, so that's a big advantage. The 3-speed
it's basically
was terrible.
the same trans that carried over into the JK.
Okay.
I'm not saying that it's great.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that it's way better than
a 3-speed.
Yeah.
The 3-speed was rough. But it was such a fun vehicle, and I drove it all over Arizona. I mean, it was so capable right out of the box. I mean, it's just incredible how capable a stock Wrangler is, even of that era. A mutual friend of ours, Brian Dierman, around the same time when I started to meet all these guys on the various forums, before everything was even called Overlanding. This was back in the 4-wheel drive trips forum days. And Brian Dierman, who's been a longtime member of the community, goes to the Overland Expos, well-traveled. He bought what was the first year of the Rubicon TJ?
2003.
Okay. So he bought the first year of the Rubicon, and because he wanted to not affect the warranty, he drove that thing everywhere stock. They had bone stock.
The form factor of them is what really gives them the capability. They're pretty small vehicles. The axles stick out much farther, and the wheels and tires stick out much further than the body. Amazing approach, amazing departure, amazing-ish breakover, because they had that, the transmission skid plate or transfer case skid plate hangs way down.
It does.
Yeah. They're fascinating.
But it was cool I remember this was early in my more four-wheeling centric days. And Brian he did all the trips that we did, all the stuff we did down to Mexico. He also did all of the really hard trails that we did in Arizona. And then in, I think maybe around 2004, I did my first trip across the Rubicon, and I had a YJ at that point that I'd done the full ARB kit to. And the reason why I did that is when I was in the Air Force, I went on this club run one time in Idaho, and there was this couple that showed up with a brand new YJ that the ARB catalog had been thrown at. And it had 33 950s, Old Man Emu, air lockers front and rear. It was so clean. And I just remember just being wide-eyed, this is the coolest Jeep I've ever seen. And of course, it did everything on the club run easily because it was dual locked, and most of us could maybe afford a locker for the rear or whatever.
Yeah.
So I always wanted to build a YJ like that. And I did. I ended up building a really nice YJ. It was the first vehicle I drove across the Rubicon. But the guy that came along, and his name escapes me right now, but he also had a stock 2003, 2004 Rubicon TJ unmodified. And we went through the whole Rubicon together, and neither of us had any issues. I think I bent my exhaust a little bit.
Yeah, something like that.
I just remember being terrified as I first went into the gatekeeper back when there was a gatekeeper on the Rubicon. And there was these huge rock crawlers all around getting welded, and grinders are going. And I'm thinking, what have I done? I'm never going to. And of course, it was no big deal if you just drive on the main trail and not drive like an idiot. But yeah, it was such a fun experience. And it shows just how capable these very stock or near stock vehicles really are.
Yeah. I mean, I think with the process that we've had with ours starting to build it, we have some longer term, really fun plans with the car. And kind of like I was saying initially, that it showed up in a lot worse shape than we thought it was. So we kind of had to do a lateral and fix the stuff so we could actually drive it. It's a nice thing to be able to go back to the TJ LJ, because it makes you realize how much Jeep has actually listened to their customer.
Yeah.
I think if you walked into the Jeep world in JK or even JL, you're like, oh, these things are just amazing. 37s. Yeah, cool. Whatever. Well, if I want to put 37s on my LJ and I want to do it right,
it's a huge endeavor.
It's a process. I mean, you're talking axles, it's
Highline fenders, all that.
It's a big deal. And I think that we kind of get a little too comfortable with how easy these vehicles are to modify, because clearly somebody's kind of been listening. Like the fact that I can do a basic 2-inch lift. I mean, I do springs and I do shocks and like some sway bar extensions, a factory Mopar lift on a JL or a Gladiator. It's 37-inch tires.
Yeah.
I would have to cut everything basically down to a bare frame if I wanted to do it right.
Yeah.
To do 37s on that car. So that's why when you're on the Rubicon, so much stuff was breaking, is because Billy Bob decided to weld this on there. And the other thing never mind with that, but the thing that we've realized is it's really hard to get good quality Jeep stuff.
Right.
We bought a lot of products for this initially that we just ended up sending back because we're like, you sell this to people?
Yeah.
And
why do you think that is?
I don't know. The amount of junk suspension stuff that is out there for the TJ, the amount of junk bumpers. I don't know if people look at these vehicles as being disposable.
Yeah. Or maybe it's just so it looks a certain way, maybe.
Yeah. Maybe it's not, they're not functional accessories. The stuff that is very functional has just a drastically different aesthetic than what I'm looking for. I want to be able to, I would say, in an Overland truck, I want to be able to hit a deer.
Yeah.
And I want to be able to not be stranded. Well, when you cut the fenders off and you're running a hood and a bumper that's 2 inches wider than your frame rails, like that's the style.
Yeah.
For TJs and LJs and everything right now, is to turn it into this rock crawler.
Yeah.
Even though, I guess if you're looking for a body and a frame,
sure.
you're replacing everything else. So
I think they can work. And that's maybe the joy of the Jeep, is that you can buy a stock one, take the top off and just have an awesome daily driver. You can also take a JK or a JL, slap 40s on it with some axle upgrades, and that works too as a rock crawler. And then you can also easily travel with them. And part of what inspired us to want to talk about the TJ and the TJ long wheelbase is the fact that people like Dan Grech,
drove the Pan American.
When he drove the Pan American Highway, he took a soft top stalker TJ and did the entire length of it and had a great time. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things that's most endearing about his story is that he had dreadlocks, and this guy just wanted to go travel to Ushuaia. And he's like, I'm going to take my Jeep. And he didn't even think about what stuff do I have to put on it, or how do I need to modify this vehicle? He literally, with a soft top, like the things that we would never recommend people do, he did with ease. And like, he didn't get his Jeep stolen. And you think about a soft top, like, you're going to get
so here's the argument
or whatever.
is the idea of driving a TJ to Ushuaia sounds crazy, but the idea of driving a BJ70 with quarter of the horsepower and worse suspension suddenly sounds great, or an FJ40 sounds romantic.
Right.
This is, to me, the TJ is that if we were to fast forward 10, 15 years, think how archaic that vehicle is going to be. It's a steel tub.
Yeah.
There's not much going on with it. There's really does it have ABS?
Some of them did later.
I think it does.
Yeah.
I think mine would, because that's an 06, but maybe they have ABS. Like, bed lining the inside is a upgrade.
Yeah, exactly.
I
think that's what makes them, I think, a unique consideration, is that they're not that expensive when you compare to most Jeeps. Jeeps will always be expensive for their time, because they're timeless, right? So they'll always be valuable, which is another thing that I think makes them an advantage. So you do something like Dan Grech did, where you drive this TJ all the way down. I bet you can bring that thing back and sell it essentially what you bought it for.
Well, and the parts are so cheap. Like I want to say, I've said before, like that the XJ is a great vehicle to travel in, but an XJ and a TJ are functionally the same thing for most of their driveline componentry and things. Like, after going through the 80 series thing of $1,700 factory alternator for that car, parts are just insanely expensive. Now that's Toyota stuff, and the quality of early 90s Toyota versus mid 2000s Chrysler, the Toyota stuff's still better, full stop. You're looking at $15 tie rod ends. So there's your point, is that you can take that Jeep to whoever you want. Mm-hmm. Any mechanic can work on that. If a mechanic can't work on a TJ,
They shouldn't be a mechanic. Yeah.
Run.
Yeah, exactly.
Run.
And I wonder how prolific they were down in South America. I know that they got them in Argentina, but I don't know much about where else they were in South America. But
they don't really have, I mean, like I had a 99 TJ. That was the terrible one, you know, when I first worked here.
But that was, I remember even then, like you had a love for that car because it was like your first 4-wheel drive.
I just like, there's something about TJs to me that are just simple.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that a TJ is trying to be anything.
True.
Like you don't see TJs with the angry grills that people put on their cars.
Yeah. You don't see very many frowning grills on TJs.
Like very frumpy looking. You know, I mean, you do see some horrible, like that was like the era of shitty built, right?
Yeah.
Like terrible, like products that were knocked off by company A, then knocked off by company B, then knocked off by company C.
Right. And they just made them worse.
Comes along and, you know, knocks off the fourth knockoff of the roof. Remember that like roof rack that I bought?
Oh,
like not knowing any different than you're like,
it was just like wobbling. Totally.
Yeah. Like you could, you know, it could have been made of straw.
Yeah. You couldn't put anything up there safely.
Nothing. There's so many bad parts for these things. And I think one of the reasons why I'm doing this project is I think that some of these things need to be saved. Yeah. They can't all be cut up into buggies. Yeah. Just buy a UTV at that point. Like, I don't know why you're spending $40,000 on, you know, Genrite suspension, even though it's awesome. Yeah. When you can get like 28 inches of travel out of a Can-Am. Yeah.
But I think that's what's happening. I think a lot of that is happening, which is good. That way people can do their UTV thing and do their day trips.
I mean, you know, I'm in a weird environment. I recognize that I'm super fortunate to have the things that I have. I mean, I work 14 hours a day, so I can have them, but, and I take a lot of risk, but to have the Earth Roamer and the Gladiator, you know, I've always had a lot of redundancy, whether that's because of business needs or my vehicle ADD at the time. But like, I'm excited to go to Moab in this thing and throw my swag in the back with my dog and like a cooler and just like kind of go back to basics. I'm excited to take it down to Baja. Yeah. You know, just run it down the beach in San Felipe or whatever. You know, it's maybe not something that I want to live out of for an extended period of time, but it's just fun. It's like a 4-wheel motorcycle. It's a dirt Harley. I mean, that's kind of what what TJs are, it seems, in Prescott, at least. There's so many in Prescott. Yeah, there's so many Jeeps in Prescott. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah, there are, but certainly the most popular vehicle that I see around town.
I think the problem with the TJ is like, how do you build it? Yeah. Which direction do you go with it? Because these older vehicles, as parts become scarce, the prices go up. Yeah. And then you have to start maintaining vehicles and replacing things while you're in there.
And there's no more AEV suspension for TJ?
I don't know. Dave, are you listening?
Dave. Yeah. How about a limited run of the Highline fenders?
Dave.
So what is the go-to suspension options right now? Let's say you want to go with 1.5 inches to 2 inches of lift. What do you typically look at? What are the couple high point?
Well, an
options?
1.5 inches. So this is the thing. 1.5 inches or 2 inches of lift gets you a 31-inch tire on that car.
Right.
Like the Rubicon came with 30s stock. They were like 30.5s. Yeah. They were
30 by 950s. Yeah, basically
245. Yeah. 65 16s,
something like that. Yeah.
So we've decided to run like a 285 75 16, which is just under a 33-inch tire. And we need 4 inches of lift to do that, which just like blows my mind because you can put that on anything. Like the Gladiator comes with that stock now.
Stock, yeah.
So as far as I don't really know, there's so many options that are out there.
Now, what did you go with on yours?
We're working right now with what was on the Jeep as far as the springs. We had to do JKS track bars because of how the frame side was previously drilled out for a Heim joint. Other than that, we're going to pretty much stick to TerraFlex on everything. They still seem to support that vehicle.
Very much so, yeah.
You know, where a lot of other companies have just moved on, which maybe that's why there's so much crap out for these. Is there's just, I don't know if there's not a market for it or what. But yeah, we did the TerraFlex arms.
And what do they have for bushings?
They have a rubber bushing on one end and then kind of a Johnny joint style on the other. It's really, really hard to get away from any kind of performance joint or something.
Just for noise, right?
Yeah. And literally the best that we could find was an arm that had it just on one, which then still attenuates some of that. It
does help.
And then it does give us the flex, again, like going back to how much work these things take to get mediocre performance out of them by modern standards. There's a lot that you have to do. The kit that I would like to do is this TerraFlex long arm 4-inch kit, because right now, the angles on my control arms it's
probably why the other ones failed so miserably. I mean, if you think of every impact is just, it's not letting the suspension go upwards and travel through a normal range. Yeah. A lot of that energy is just going right into the joints.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I think a long arm makes a lot of sense.
There's also these mid arm kits that Gen Wright and Savvy do. Those are definitely the high end. But so much of these Jeeps are like still of the King of the Hammers rock crawling era, in the same way that, the destiny of the Gladiator and the 4Runner and the Tacoma is to become an Overland style truck. The destiny of the TJ was set in 97 because that was the big thing, to be a rock crawler.
Yeah.
So there's really nobody is going back to revisit these old platforms because people already have the development.
They moved on to the JK and the JL.
And now for a quick break from one of our supporters, Onyx Off-Road. If you're driving or riding on dirt this summer, don't leave home without the Onyx Off-Road GPS app. For less than a tank of gas, get access to 550,000 miles of trails and roads and 985 million acres of public land for camping, fishing, exploring, and all of your outdoor adventures. Onyx Off-Road maps are fully interactive, meaning you can tap anywhere on the map for detailed information. Check out featured trails for trail descriptions, photos, difficulty ratings, and more. Your maps will even work without cell coverage, so you never have to worry about getting lost. Go to onyxoffroad.com and use the code OJ at checkout for 20% off right now. Thanks, Onyx.
There's no empirical reason to choose an LJ or a TJ for overland travel over anything made after it. Except for
there's a funk factor that I think is really charming.
I love it. I mean,
I've seen some really nice, clean long wheelbase TJs out there. You look at a white long wheelbase with a little bit of a lift or an original Rubicon.
Yeah.
They're
kind of classic,
with
right?
The tan hard top. I think they look great. Put an ARB bumper on the front of it.
Well, that's what we're doing is we're trying to make it just a classic looking vehicle. Whenever you get a new car, you're like, what can I do to it? Since this is basically a buggy by modern standards, the 2003 to 2008 Ram truck Hemi powertrain slides in real nice.
So is that version 2.0?
I don't know, man. I know that I shouldn't, and it's a horrible idea, but there's just something about having like a 400 horsepower little tiny Jeep to run around town that just although like we've started to do some trail runs and stuff now with it, that it's not going to just evaporate into a million pieces of 4-wheel parts crap, so it still rides like junk. It's like you kind of get spoiled. Like you get into the Gladiator and you have proper control arm geometry. You have 37s.
They fix so much.
You have Kings, it's so much better. And then you like go into the parking lot at your trailhead and you're like,
it's like you have to air down just to hear yourself think.
Yeah, exactly. So, I'd like to do stupid things.
That would be a fun one though. I mean,
I would love to just have this ridiculous resto mod TJ. Like I'm going to get excited here. Like if I could I want to say that the 6.1 SRT engine is what is most appropriate for that vehicle. You can do the 392, 6.4 and all
say that again,
stuff.
but slower next time.
The 6.1 liter SRT Hemi V8.
That would be so insane. Like, how do you not die when you put that in there?
I mean, you can put a Hellcat in there if you really want.
But again, how do you not die with, 1960s suspension technology and, and 700 horsepower. How do you not die?
Very careful.
I guess.
I mean, it really is 1960s suspension technology. Like, honestly, anything that Jeep put on that car in the suspension department, you pretty much have to replace.
Yeah.
Like,
they just had a different purpose back then. They really did. I mean, if you look at the YJ, and definitely the TJ was an evolution in the positive way, but these were light duty vehicles. These were meant to be used for the day. You put a couple sleeping bags in the back, maybe. They weren't really good with a hard top. They were better with a soft top. They were really just meant to be these light duty recreation. They were their UTV of their day.
100%.
And they just really aren't meant to be overpowered or overdriven or overtired. They're really not intended for that.
So that's the thing, right? Is you can recognize the vehicle for what it is. And that's the smart choice. Or you can put a Hemi in it.
Yeah.
And I have to say, like, it doesn't ride bad. I really think Mike McMod's Brute is sitting over here.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, Mike, if you don't pick that thing up, I'm going to start stealing parts from it. Because he's got all that AEV nth degree suspension. Like,
I know, it's all there.
Like when you lift a TJ or an LJ, like 3 inches, the spring is at like it's like an arc. It's like a 30-degree radius. I mean, it's weird. So you have to like cut that off and like relocate it to like the center of the hoop of the axle hoop.
Sure.
I'm calling it a hoop. I don't know why I'm calling it a hoop. He's got the little widget that does that from AEV, and he's got the control arm relocation brackets, which move them down. I want to say like 3 or 4 inches. Yep. So they're like, everything's stock. You can't get that stuff anymore.
No, you can't.
Which is fascinating to me.
And I think that's
because they need it.
Yeah. For me, if I was going to focus on the pinnacle TJ, it really is the Brute that's parked next door here at the office.
Yeah, but Dak doesn't fit in it.
That's true. But for me, for Scotty version, to have the truck, the pickup truck
Aaron's
conversion.
Dog can sit on the center console.
That's true. Yeah, so true.
Very small.
Chihuahua.
It's
still dangerous because of the dog.
100% way more likely to get bit by that Chihuahua than my Greyhound.
Yeah, for sure. But if we
love that Chihuahua.
We do. Absolutely. No question. But if you take like Highline fender, the low profile hood, the little cab, so then all the HVAC works great because it's only trying to cool or heat like 5 square feet. And then you've got a 6-foot bed on the back. For me, when I first got that truck here and Mike saying, I think I'm going to sell it, I thought very, very seriously about it. It's got the Cummins 3-liter turbo diesel in it.
Yeah.
A 5-speed heavy duty manual transmission.
It's real good.
Yeah. Air locker.
But what I'll tell you is even that Jeep probably needs $20,000 in stuff to make it function as you think it should.
Yeah, maybe.
They're just never ending money pits.
Yeah, maybe. I think the only thing I think about on that Jeep at all would be when they tuned it, they didn't get the full RPM range. Like that engine is designed to operate up to 3,200 RPMs. And it like red lines or the rev limiter comes in at about 2,850. So it just really affects the usability of the powertrain.
If that had a V8 in it, I'd be over on it. I'd be about it.
You'd be all about it.
I'd be about it. I mean,
I don't know. I like the little diesel. We just did a bunch of work on it to get it sorted. So maybe it'll be available for sale.
I think it's really cool.
And that color with that rack on there.
It's beautiful.
It's the only AEV built Brute diesel.
I mean, it's perfect.
It is perfect. And in its own imperfect way.
Yeah. I mean, LJs and TJs, they're all just very imperfect.
Right.
It just becomes so much labor and so much time.
Yeah. And they're also not new. These are older vehicles. These are getting up in age that you've really got to start paying attention to them.
I think if I was to decide to drop big money on mine, it would probably be some Dynatrac axles and a V8. And when you're doing those axles, you then do your long arm or mid arm. Like I'm really keen on the Savvy mid arm. It actually welds onto the frame, which allows you to kind of like tuck up the transfer case a bit more. I like the Terraflex too. I don't really know. I mean, I think this is I would love I know that there's people that know way more about TJs and LJs than I do. What works? Reach out.
Yeah.
Matt Explore on Instagram.
Please do. Yeah. Reach out to us
on Instagram, because it occasionally annoys me. And then I'm like, I'm not giving you my time for free, Facebook. I just recently had
no more data for you, Facebook.
I just had to do some like business things on Facebook, and they've gone the Microsoft route. Is there like, instead of having like that kind of visionary Steve Jobs thing, which is like, no, this is the way to do it. This is how you're going to do it. They're trying to accommodate like everyone and everything.
Yeah. And now it's impossible to do anything.
Like we were trying to run an ad on Adventure Imports we got a bunch of MaxTrax Extremes, and that was a good ad right there. No, but so we're like trying to, wow, this is a nice tangent, but we're trying to like run an ad. We can't even figure this out. Like, cause this account isn't talking to this account.
Yeah.
We don't have this installed on, and we're like,
why make it so difficult to take my money?
Yeah. I just want to press a button.
Yeah.
Just press the button.
Yeah. And that's exactly what Steve Jobs would do. You would have a post that you would create, and there would be a button on the bottom that you would push to say, promote this.
They kind
post.
of have that.
And then
then they kind of lie to you.
Because then it doesn't. Then it takes you to 6 other screens. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, and I just get frustrated, and I'm like, we're just going to sell these things anyways. Like, why am I wasting my money? Yeah. It's annoying.
Yeah.
What were we talking about before I started ranting about Facebook?
That's the thing about social media.
Yeah.
It's the thing. It's almost like a TJ.
Yeah.
Love to hate it.
TJ, you love it, but then you hate it.
Then you have to do all this work.
You love it. And then it's over 85 degrees outside. The AC in mine also, the mint perfect Jeep had like a dime sized hole in the
condenser.
The winch cable was routed underneath the track bar up front, and then back up. It has not left me in good spirits with
the eBays of the world.
With eBay.
Yeah.
It's not eBay's fault, but I don't know. I mean, like, is it crazy to accept, when you pay still decent money for a car that the guy washes it?
Yeah. It's just,
there was like a 1/4 inch of mud on the outside. Like,
yeah.
I don't know if the person just looked at it like,
I think a lot of people, they don't really consider enough about how it would feel if they got the same treatment.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
If like, how would this guy like to receive a truck that he just spent good money that he saved and worked hard for?
This is going to pay the guy asking price and everything. Yeah. I don't know. That's basically been
that's the life of buying used cars.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think there's much else to talk about TJs. I mean, the bumper thing is interesting because you can either, like you said, go super terrible, which means some kind of giant stinger that is like socially irresponsible to drive on the road. Or
why do people think these things are cool?
They're not, well, I mean, they do have a function as a rock crawler, but when
you have an exo cage for it to also triangulate upon, otherwise it just means that there's more weight on the passenger compartment and then you die.
If you're
buy more stinger bumpers if you're the person who wants to have a stinger bumper.
Yeah, I mean, the stinger bumper works really well if they go way far out there, or like we had them on the trucks, the Hilux, when we were crossing Antarctica because we didn't want to fall into a crevasse. So bumpers like that.
I see an awful lot of those in malls in Illinois.
Exactly.
Like when I go back home to Chicago, which I don't really do.
But when I do,
I see so many stinger bumpers. Like they just plague the Midwest. Yeah. Also fake. They're like, it went like stinger bumper, then fake bead locks.
Yeah, that's right.
They're terrible.
Yeah. That was the beginning of the end of rock crawling.
I do have advice for people that are looking to restore a LJ. It's wonderful, but buy a 2-door LJ. You just literally, what you do is you take LJ and then you swap the letters and it becomes a JL and you fix all of your problems.
No, I think they're charming. And I think like what Dan Grech did driving down to Ushuaia was incredibly charming. And I think that if we keep them mostly stockish.
Yeah.
And where you get to go to AutoZone and you get to buy the $70 alternator.
Yep.
And you get to buy the $26 control arm. Like, I think in my mind, it's Rubicon version with like an 1.5 inch spacer lift.
Yeah.
And 1 or 2 inches taller tire. And then you just drive it.
I hear that.
Or you go brute. I mean, that would be my other option.
I'm still hoping that someone out there, someone
on the interwebs,
someone will have an AEV Highline kit.
Yeah.
Just sitting out there. Like maybe it's sitting on a shelf.
It is.
Maybe it's on your Jeep and you want to get rid of it and you want some nice flame red paint code fenders to put on your Jeep.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it.
And on that bombshell. So that's our...
I'm out of beer. Therefore, I can't talk about TJs anymore.
We cannot talk about TJs anymore, but they are cool. Matt has owned 2. I've owned one, and I have so many great memories of mine. And again, take a look at Dan Greck's trip through the Americas in his soft top TJ.
He's a YouTuber now.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, I can't give him enough shit for that, but I mean, I'm a podcaster, so we all got to hustle.
I don't know if we do.
I don't know which one's worse, but
they're all some version of worse, right?
Yeah. I'm just selling myself over the internet. We need to create OnlyFans.
That's been happening.
Overlanding.
Overland fans.
Pay for my vacation here. Sorry, I said that out loud, but yeah. Anyway, stay tuned on I guess the LJ project.
We'll keep sending updates.
I think we're going to be doing some videos of it, hopefully for Portal. You'll see some editorial for it on the front page of Expedition Portal. You'll be able to follow along on kind of day to day, I guess, on the Adventure Imports social media, and which is just at Adventure Imports. Practical. Easy.
And then they can get a hold of you for the Highline kit.
And then you can get a hold of me for the Highline kit that somebody out there has, or AEV wheels. That is another thing that I'm like, I want to go period correct. Like I'm I'm like a pretentious snob of 4-wheel drive. Like I need it to be perfect.
Yeah. That's okay. You're allowed to have it perfect.
I'm comfortable with that. I guess the thing now is figure out where we're going to take it. Although the next month gets very, very busy with getting married and then going on a honeymoon to the Serengeti.
Which is going to be awesome.
It's going to be so awesome. Except for the wedding. Neither of us wanted a wedding. We've learned very quickly that the wedding is about everybody but the people getting married.
Yeah, that's probably true.
But stoked that you're going to be there.
Well, I'm excited that you're getting
just going to
because Laura's awesome. So
like feeding me psychohallucinogenic drugs.
I will. We'll be in Colorado. It'll be fine. It's going to be totally fine.
I don't do psychohallucinogenic drugs. That was a joke. And on that bombshell.
Yep. Thank you all for listening, and we will talk to you next time.